I was somebody who back in the day had a very, very low sense of self-worth. And when I tell you that my standard for men and boys growing up, the bar was on, it was in hell. The bar was so far down on the floor. It just penetrated through floor 10 and just like went through every floor and hit ground zero. Hello, my name is Haley Delgado, and this is my story time and my experience with my Chiron in Libra. And this is just my experience, this is my emotions, my thoughts, my journey, my ride with this placement. And whether you have Chiron in Libra, Chiron square, Venus retrograde, South Node in Libra, Chiron at a Libra degree, or you just stumbled upon this video and you clicked on it, I hope that you can relate, connect in some way, shape, or form. This is less about teaching and more so just documenting my experience with the transits. Doesn't mean that it'll happen to you in the same way, but again, if you relate at all, I'd love to hear in the comments below. If you guys wanted to know, I have Chiron in Libra at the 26th degree, and it's conjunct my midheaven in Scorpio. Okay, so first aspect of my Chiron in Libra that really, when I think of my Chiron in Libra, I think about the first thing, which is the unfair and uneven relationships that I had gone through in my lifetime. Now, may I just say, I was somebody who back in the day had a very, very low sense of self-worth. And when I tell you that my standard for men and boys growing up, the bar was on, it was in hell. The bar was so far down on the floor. It just penetrated through floor 10 and just like went through every floor and hit ground zero. And I'm a Sag moon, so I like to laugh through, all the different stories of my life. And I think that this is something that took so long for me to understand, to realize. I, with my Chiron and Libra, wanted love so badly. I just wanted to be loved. I wanted to be adored. And I remember with my Chiron and Libra, I would attract, because I feel like I was looking for love so outside of myself, people who either didn't love themselves at all or couldn't at that time in their life, which led to me over giving, over pleasing, doing everything that I could to love somebody and to just feel that reciprocated back. And looking back in my life, I think that I asked for a lot of validation in terms of my own beauty, in terms of being wanted and being desired, in places where it wasn't there. And it took me a long time to realize that I was the love. Oh, we are only 4 minutes in. Okay. But I don't know if anybody is related to that, where I think that there's always the beauty in Chiron. There's always a polarity or a paradox that I see in other people's Chirons, but especially when looking at myself, where it was there all along. I just thought that it was outside of me. And, Libra is so much about mirrors, and I was mirroring and attracting in boys and even friendships, not just relationships, where I would just do anything to please people. And I remember how badly it would hurt sometimes even doing that. It was like if somebody asked me to jump and I said how high, once they asked me to do a cartwheel, it was like I was already exhausted. I already like didn't want to do it, but I did it and I tried my best. And when you don't get, I guess, that right reaction, or the right compliment, or the words that you want people to say to you so much, it would really hurt my heart, right? And I think Libra and the scales is the balance of the mind and the heart, and in order to fulfill my heart, I was looking for a lot of validation. I also was born on my Chiron IC line in California, and I would love to do a whole video on my experience with that, because once I traveled outside of the country, I left my hometown for the very first time across the world. That is when I met the love of my life, and that was when everything changed for me. And I wanted to kind of make a part two with this, with the subject of uneven or unfair relationships, or just relationships in general. I think that I felt bad, or like embarrassed even, for just saying that I really, really wanted love, or I really, really loved being in a relationship, or I really loved love, and it's just so silly looking back on it. But I have so much like honor and compassion and heart for the old me, for the younger me who felt that way. And I think that, there were myriads of people, yes, who showed me how to love myself the hard way. But I very much experienced and am experiencing being loved not through the hard way. Being loved for who I am, which leads me into my next point, beauty standards. A little bit about my personal journey with beauty standards and just beauty in general. I have Chiron square my sun, and I, from a very young age, always felt like the ugly duckling, straight up. When I was younger, I was a tomboy, and I would see girls, not playing in the mud and not playing sports. And I was so young. I remember being like, oh, I don't think that I'm that type of girl, and I was okay with that. And then I remember when it came to middle school and all the recess stopped. RIP recess. Like, it was a lot about socializing and fashion and what people were wearing. And I just remember feeling like I have so much work to do. And maybe that's my Capricorn rising too, of just feeling like I'm started from the bottom. And, I remember just so badly feeling like when skinny jeans came out, if I could have skinny jeans. And I remember my mom taking us, we would go back to school shopping and we could get a few outfits. And I remember I was starting middle school and I was so excited, and I loved Levi's. That was what was at my local store, and I got flared jeans. And I remember showing up to middle school, and at some point everybody had skinny jeans, and I remember just feeling like, oh my gosh, I want that, right? And I remember like cuffing my flared jeans and like making them skinny, and just like, oh my gosh, like maybe I could have a pair. And I remember I like begged my mom. I did a lot of chores, and I asked her if we could go to PacSun to go get a pair of skinny jeans. And I was very, very thin growing up too, just naturally. And I remember I got my skinny jeans, and in middle school, and kids can be so mean. And I remember a girl called me chicken legs, and I remember nobody noticed my skinny jeans except for her. And I was like, why? Like, why? Because I felt, and the thing is like, it didn't make me feel like any better. The fact that I had jeans, I was like, wow, I kind of just look like everybody else. But I guess that's better than feeling like the odd one out. And it was just a lot of things like that from a young age, I think, where I just felt deficient. I felt like there was something inherently wrong with me. And that I've read many astrology articles where Chiron squaring Sun just feels like that. And as I grew older, it there was such like a, because it's the training ground. And I remember I learned how to straighten my hair, and I learned how to put on makeup, and I loved makeup. Like, I love the beauty world. I think I was using it in a way to fulfill a void. So, I really let what a lot of people in my relationships, what they found beautiful, get to me. And that really hurt. And I remember there was a point, there's been little peaks throughout my life where I've had the opportunity to feel powerful, right? But I do remember that my body at some point, started to give out, because it was time for me to learn the lesson that beauty was not external, it was internal. And I remember in college, I was really starting to gain a lot of confidence in college. And I remember that I found extensions, right? And I am proud to say that I no longer wear extensions, and that was my own personal choice. And I would wear them if I ever wanted to, but I got to grow my hair out and heal my scalp, and really fall in love with taking care of my hair. But I remember I found extensions, and I just remember I would put them on every single day, and I remember my hair thinning out and my scalp just like really hurt. And I was like, wow, like, but I can't give them up, And then there were little peaks where I would not wear them, and I started to feel okay, right? And it's a journey. I grew up in California, in the suburbs right outside of LA, but there's still a lot of media, a lot of on social media. There's a lot around people looking the same, right? And I just remember I, again, wanted to fit in, right? Like, those lessons will come back in different forms, I swear, until we learn the lesson, right? And I was self-tanning, and, I remember too, at some point, I was ordering clothes that were polyester, and I remember I, out of nowhere, I thought that I felt beautiful, right? But there was a deep void inside of me. And I remember my skin, I started having like a rash, like, that started taking over my body. And I couldn't figure out why. And I went to a healer. Basically, it was like very divine timing. I didn't set this up. Somebody had gifted this to me, and I went, and she helped me. And so that was like a little alignment blessing from God. She basically did some EFT tapping to make me feel safe in my body again. And I remember that it went away. It was on my hands. It was on my fingers. It was under my armpits. It was like on my neck. It was like drying out. It felt like it was sucking the life out of me. And so after that, I ditched tanning. And I remember I also, played around and got lip injections. And I remember I didn't regret it, but I missed my natural self so much, right? And so, I started to embrace me. And around 2024, I had, moved on in a lot of different phases of my life, and I was starting to travel. And one of the most healing things that happened for me, which I also have Chiron in my 9th house, which is really, really interesting to me, that travel and also relationships were the very things that healed me as well. And I remember I went to France to go and stay with a girlfriend of mine. And it was so crazy to me, because that was the first time in my life where I was surrounded by people who looked like me, but the me that was natural. I remember seeing girls like not tan, just showing and rocking their natural skin tone, their light complexion, and they had curly hair. And, you could see their freckles, and I have freckles, and they were rocking their natural lips, and I was like, wow, like it's not like that everywhere, right? Because in where I grew up, and I know like in South Korea and like different places in the world, there's just insane beauty standards, right? And I remember just feeling like, wow. And it was Paris. And I also, for the first time, I feel like whether it was I was just seeing it and maybe I just didn't see it back on my Chiron line or back in California, but I was looking at all these different walks of life, like embracing their features. And I was like, wow. And I remember around that time too, I fell in love with my nose. And my nose was something that I got bullied for a lot. And it's so true. Like the little tiny things that we overthink, that we're insecure about, other people don't notice half the time or a lot of the time, or maybe not at all. And I have like a kind of like a, I guess you could say like a hump in my nose. And I remember in middle school, you're growing into your features, and I was growing into my nose, and I remember just getting made fun of it. And I remember that I wanted, at one point when I had the lip injections, when I had the hair extensions, when I was tanning, when I had the false eyelashes, and all this stuff. I remember I really wanted a nose job, and I was saving for it, and I was researching different doctors. And when I go on my photos and I actually look back at that time, I still have all these screenshots of doctors. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, like that couldn't be further from what I want today. And something else about relationships and people playing a healing role is the beauty of like innocence too. I think that at one point my brother is like 6 years younger than me, and he's actually one day apart from me, so he's a Cancer too, and I consider him like my little twin in a lot of ways. And it's my little brother, and nobody loves me like my little brother, right? Like my little siblings. And I remember telling him that I wanted a nose job, and I remember him just straight up, just like confused and just so soft-spokenly just being like, I don't think that you need that. And it was like, it was just such an innocent like vessel, and it was just so close to home, right? Of like a voice of somebody that just like truly loved me and was like, I don't think that you need that. I think that you're perfect the way that you are, right? And from that moment on, I'm so grateful too, because I think there's truth in, yes, like not allowing people's opinions to define your inner authority or like sway your decisions. But I think there's also a truth where like being loved and the people who love you and like listening, taking that love and accepting that love and accepting compliments, right? And accepting love is also so, so healing. Yeah, I think I'm at the point today where, I've just come so far, and it's something I'm really, really proud about and something I wanted to share. So that is beauty standards. The other thing, kind of like the lighter side, and the very, very fun part of the Chiron in Libra for me has been what I call the Venus path or the beauty path. And I found out about this when I actually learned about ancient civilizations, and I was learning about ancient Egypt. And it is essentially, in a very, very, very short, like footnotes description, a path where we leave things more beautiful than we found them. And I think that it being something very personal and spiritual to myself has allowed for me to do the Libra thing. I think of expressing beauty and showing love from a place that where it always starts with me, right? So some fun things, some cool things, of ways that I shifted in showing up for people, for the people that I love, is, and even for myself. And so first off with myself, is, if somebody gives me a ride, right, in their car, I will, like my mom and I go to the store, like I'll just clear out the trash in the side of her car. Like if it's there, or if I go to see a friend, I'll write them like a little note, or, bring like a little gift, like a little token. If I visit somebody's place and there's something like that's fallen over, like I'll just pick it up. And I think about too, like the things that I find beautiful and the things that I enjoy, like essential oils, like fresh flowers. But I think it's just the little things of leaving spaces and people like more beautiful than you'd found them. And that's something that I think really healed me as well, because it wasn't for validation. It wasn't so that people will love me more. It wasn't so that I could try to, get some sort of external validation. It always starts with me now. And yeah, and I think that has led to more of the Empress energy of Libra in my life, and accepting my Libra-ness and fully owning my Libra-ness. And I really, really enjoyed that. And so I thought that I'd mention that. And then the next one is when I really delved into my Chiron in Libra and my chart, I found that the Aphrodite asteroid was on my rising. And I remember watching pick a card readings, and something that kept coming up was Aphrodite. Like Aphrodite might be working with you. She might want to work with you. Aphrodite just kept on coming my way. When I went to vintage stores, I would see statues of Aphrodite. And I remember rose quartz came into my sphere, and I started working with Aphrodite. And when I looked into the Aphrodite asteroid, one thing that kept coming up was self-love. That self-love is Aphrodite. And so incorporating more Venusian Libra things into my life, like fresh flowers, rose quartz, swans, roses, seashells, right? And having like little, like adding to my altar space, I think that was something that was really, really healing. And just, I dedicated my makeup routine for many years now. Whenever I want to dedicate my makeup routine to Aphrodite, I do that. And something that I do, which is like rituals, right? And I think that that's also correlated to Libra, is realize too that I don't have to, always have relationships or Libra be associated with other people. Libra to me now is so much starting with self, and rituals and like simple things lead to big waves, right? And so for years now, I have applied body lotion all over my body every single day, no matter if I'm traveling on a plane, or like I had a rough day, or like back from an amusement park or anything. I always shower and apply body lotion unless, I really, really can't. But I think that was such a tribute to like my skin. And, your skin is your largest organ. And to me, I was like, well, that's something that I can do to show my body and my organ that I love it just the way that it is, and in its full naturalness. And that was just my decision and my path, and what made me feel good, and what helped heal my mind around it. And it's like nourishing myself and just doing things for me if I like them, right? And I think that was another thing too, is like, with trends and like trying to look pretty for somebody else, or, trying to look a certain way. I think now I ask myself so much, like, what colors do I want to wear today? How am I feeling? I want it to reflect me. It's so much more personal, my relationship with beauty. So there was definitely the self-love. And, it was really, really being able to be alone too. And there was a point in 2023 as well when I started to treat myself like my own girlfriend. Like I was dating myself, and I was like, what would I do if I was dating myself? And of course my Leo Venus was like, girl, I would to the nines. I would wine and dine you. So that's what I did. Even though it was like really different for me to do things on my own, and I was really afraid sometimes of being on my own, I would take myself out and I would get like my favorite salad, and I would get, a glass of wine, and I would just watch baseball. I love baseball. I would just have the best time. And I would just take myself for walks, or just eat my acai bowls alone, or just, and that's another thing too, is I think like just enjoying kind of like things that bring me pleasure, like finer things, like even though no matter how expensive or inexpensive it is, just enjoying like the sunshine, just like coloring in the park by myself. And I really started to do a lot by myself. And I think that it made me show up differently in everything, honestly, just to enjoy my own company, to feel like, okay, when I walk into a space, I'm gonna, stand tall. I'm feeling more and more comfortable with being on my own. And that's because I love my own company. And before, I remember I would get really nervous when it was time to spend time alone. And I think it's something that I had like forgotten. I remember from a young age, I'm 4 years apart from my little sister and then 6 years apart from my younger brother. And I remember from a young age, I was like really bored. Like, didn't want to do things alone. And I remember I would play with stuffed animals, and I would like play pretend. I'm pretty sure that was like my Neptune in the first, and like my moon conjunct Pluto in the 12th. But it was very new and different for me to enjoy being by myself without escaping, and like just enjoying the beauty that is surrounding me. And I think that's something too that really helped me with like Venus being correlated to the five senses. And this probably is tapping into the 26th degree that my Chiron is in. But like really anchoring myself into the present moment and enjoying where I'm at, whether I'm by myself or like with other people. And like I need to come back into myself, of tapping into the senses, like the comfiness of the chair, or the birds, the sounds, the sunshine, the wind, the rain, whatever it is. And I think that just really helped me. And I think that Aphrodite, and just self-love, it's just showing up for yourself. And like really, really that journey of just like spending so much of my time alone was really, really healing. And if everything fell away and I was by myself, I think that I would have the tools to assist in healing. And I just did not know what that looked like before. So then the last but not least part of my Chiron in Libra experience really is just connected to feminine energy. That includes ease, relaxing, pleasure, experiencing luxury. When it comes to feminine energy, so I remember too, from a very young age, I was the firstborn girl, and I just watched Gladiator, the movie, the Roman Empire, and this actually, like, it triggered like a childhood memory for me. And as a Cancer with moon in the 12th and Pluto in the 12th, I can really, once a memory gets triggered, I could really, really go back into how I felt, like the senses, like really, really go there and like vividly remember, just like a clip from a movie. And I don't even remember the people's names, honestly. I remember Maximus, and like that's basically it. But Maximus is there was a dude in Gladiator, and he was telling his daughter, I wonder what type of leader you would have been if you were a boy, right? Because he had to give his heir to a son, and I think he wanted to give it to her, but he couldn't, right? But it triggered something in me where I actually remember a lot. My father really wanted a son, and when I was born, he would say, girls are like, will change your life, being a girl dad, da da da. But there were times where, I was I think really, really comfortable in the tomboy energy. I enjoyed sports. So much. Sports was like the one thing that I really, really, it clicked, right? It clicked. I understood it. It understood me back. The only girl on an all boys baseball team at 9 years old. But I remember he would say, like, if only you were a boy, right? And I did not realize, like, and I, with peace and love to my dad, I love my dad, but that was something that back when I was a child, I remember thinking like, well, I could just be like the best boy. And I remember at some points, like, I was like, should I cross dress? Like, or kind of like Billie Eilish, I would say. Like, I just was like, should I just do that? Right. And so I think from a young age, when it came to like embracing femininity, and I've heard Billie Eilish say this, that I think when she went to prom or something like that, she wore a dress, and she had to remind herself that it was okay to dress like a girl, right? And when it came to expressing my feminine side, I think that, there was a journey with beauty, there was a journey with loving myself, but I think being in feminine energy and allowing myself to feel soft, to like feel graceful. I've always been very sensitive, but I don't think that it clicked where I saw grace as kind of like a part of me. And so just exploring that was life changing too. And in that movie had a lot of messages for me. I remember in the movie, they was talking to the same woman, the sister of the corrupted heir to the throne. They said, like, your graceful touch demands respect. And I think that that's something that, moving slower, just relaxing, being able to fully relax and not have to be productive. And, I have Chiron in the 10th, right? And so in whole sign, it's in the 9th and place it is. But this Libra legacy, I think, is like healing around, like, kind of like the law of least effort. And, I think there's so much around putting pieces together. Healing, I think, is like so multidimensional. Yeah, like exploring the feminine energy and being provided for and allowing assistance. And there's also beauty in like simplicity, right? And that's also something where, I found that like routines have made my life simpler and have allowed me to explore living a life more with ease, of just kind of knowing what to expect. And I think that's something that's really healed me, and like not viewing each day as like the battle, like the battle of like how much we could do and like how many dishes we could do and chores we could do or I could do, and or like getting super, super dolled up. I think that there's like, yeah, just like, what? It is what it is. And I think it has allowed for like pieces to fall together very naturally for myself. And I find that I attract more help. I attract like solutions by themselves with that Libra energy. And that was very, very new for me too. It's kind of interesting how these pieces lead into the other pieces. So that's everything that I have. That's everything on my list. I appreciate you guys listening, especially if you made it this far to the end. I hope to do more story times like this, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.